Okay, there's a bit of lawn mowing action going on next door, so you might not hear me properly, but so a while ago I made a video about how I remove rotted weatherboard, and I didn't bother to show you how to install new pieces because I didn't think that was too complicated, but you know, I mean, there is a bit to it, so I thought I might as well show you how I do it. I mean, it's not the only way, but yeah, this is the way I do it. So you might be able to see that I don't actually cut the old boards at the studs, right? I actually making a conscious effort to cut the boards in between two studs, because it just makes for a cleaner cut, and you know, like there's not a lot of room on a stud to sort of, if I were to sort of have to nail two joining pieces to that one stud, there's not a lot of room, and then you know, there's a lot that can go wrong. You know, you're putting four nails or like a couple of nails right next to each other in a very narrow area, and then you know, like there's a lot more can go wrong. So the way I do it is I join the pieces in between the two studs, and you know, obviously in order to make a strong enough joint, you wanna put some sort of backing behind the joint, right? Because okay, so the bottom piece will have some backing. The top of this board will act as a backing for the bottom of that board, right? But you also want to have some sort of backing up top there, just in case somebody down, you know, in the future will hammer something onto that board or just kick it or whatever, and you know, you don't want it to crack, that joint to crack. So I'll show you what I do. It's pretty straightforward. Just get little pieces of oak, like some kind of pieces of timber. I think this is about 40 mil wide and maybe 10 mil thickness, or maybe a bit less than that, whatever you can find. I mean, just don't make it too thick. So, and then I just glue this piece onto here. Similar sort of idea when you replace plasterboard pieces. You know, there's a big hole in the wall and you cut it out and you replace plasterboard pieces. You're not trying to cut around, you know, in this, like, you know, you don't want the cuts to be right above the studs. You want the cuts to be in between studs, and then you provide some sort of custom backing between the two pieces, and this is the same concept. So you want to join the two pieces together like this, you know, put a fair bit of glue on here, and you glue it to the back of this board, around the top of it, yeah. And then once you put the new piece on, you glue this piece as well you glue the new piece to this part of that piece of wood, and that will give you good backing. So this board and the new one won't be moving around, even if you kick it or hammer it or nail something on it, and it will be a strong joint. And obviously at the joint you would ideally use some flexible sealant, like you know, acrylic cork, and that in itself will also provide some sort of strength to the joint. So that's how I do it, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So, you know, before you can glue something on the back of that stuff, you would give it a bit sand just to clean off whatever rubbish is there, because these are old weatherboards and there's a fair bit of dust on the back. So just sand it off and then wipe it off, just to make sure the new piece, the glue, will stick. I mean, if you use good quality glue, construction adhesive, that will stick to anything, but you know, just to make sure, we'll do that. And then I've got the glue here. I'll use some Sally's. Oops, I'll use some Sally's liquid nails. This is terps based, kind of, all like, you know, it cleans up with terps. There are water based kind of glues as well. They are not quite as strong, but I don't think there's a lot of difference, so you could use a water cleanup version. But this is what I'll use for now, and it should last as good as timber. Yep, I'll do that now and show you what it looks like. Alright, now I've put these pieces of wood on, but you know, this glue, you know, it takes a while for it to create a strong enough bond before you can actually put apply any kind of pressure on it. So you got to let that cure for a few hours. I mean, ideally, you know, it says that you can remove mechanical fasteners in about 8 hours, but I mean, yeah, so overnight, you know, if you do this at the end of the day or something, overnight, it certainly will be enough to cure, and then after that you can install the new pieces of weatherboard. But so just be aware that when you install these pieces, you could try to sort of line them up as high as you can with the top of these existing boards, right? So don't go somewhere in the middle, but go as high as you can, just to make sure that they actually, that you know, this sort of strong joint is created in, you know, behind the overlap with the bottom of the board above, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So, you know, try to put this piece along about the sort of same height as the top of the weatherboard would be, or top of the weatherboard is. Okay, so you can probably see that's the way that is up there. So that will create the best kind of, the strongest kind of backing that you can achieve. I mean, you could use bigger pieces of wood, you know, to cover this whole area if you wanted to, but it's overkill, not necessary. This will be more than enough to provide a strong sort of backing, and the pieces of wood, weatherboards won't be coming apart, won't be falling apart or anything like that. So yep, yeah, I'll keep showing you guys how it's going. Yeah, this is a little bit unrelated, but still the same sort of topic in terms of rot repairs. So when there are, you know, rot repairs where it's simply not an option to replace, or you know, it would be too costly for the client, then you know, you can just sort of dig out whatever is really soft and nasty, and just use this stuff, Earl's wood hardener, to sort of really penetrate into the wood, and that will harden, you know, most of the sort of remaining soft timber, and you know, gives you a stable surface to use some kind of filler over, and it won't, it will penetrate the wood, saturate the wood, so that it will, well, in theory, not be absorbing moisture in the future. I mean, that's the theory anyway. So try to saturate it as best as you can. I mean, obviously it's best to remove as much of the soft timber first as possible, or as reasonable. I mean, there's a bit of that stuff happening there, which I mean, look, just the way it is, sort of the bottom weatherboard has been installed, and it's not ideal because it's sitting right on top of that top plinth, and there's no air gap in between. There's no way to sort of prime the bottom edges of the weatherboard, so it's not ideal, but it is what it is, and we're just trying to make the best out of a bad situation. So yeah, I've dug out whatever soft wood was in there, and you know, just we'll try to saturate the wood with the remaining wood with this wood hardener, and then I'll use some kind of filler, and we'll go from there. So this wood hardener, it comes in this sort of spray bottle. Yes, some of the spray bottles are they come when you bring them home from the shop, and they're simply already clogged. The nozzle is clogged, so in that case you just sort of unscrew the nozzle and just pour it out into a pot, and just use a paintbrush to apply it. This one isn't clogged, fortunately, so I can spray it, and spraying is a bit better way to do it, because I can get into all kinds of areas which I wouldn't be able to get in with a paintbrush. Use a fair bit of this stuff. Really saturate it as best as you can, because yeah, if you were just to fill it as it is without using this stuff, it wouldn't last very long at all. Try to get in. Turn it upside down, and you know, I'll even use it around here, even though this part is in theory it's not rotted, but just to make sure. Right, so this is the next day, and so all these little pieces of wood glued there pretty strong. They're not coming off in a hurry, and so what we'll do, I've put on some more glue to fix the new pieces there, and I got the identification for the new pieces. So obviously they've been primed, the end grains have been primed. That's the most important part. I'll just knock this out of the way, and that is where it's going to go. So I'm going to see, yeah, that will be fine. Knock it in there, knock that in there, and you know, I've primed the bottom edge as well of this pine board because just to make sure it doesn't soak up a lot of moisture in the future. And I will do some filling in there afterwards. Yeah, that'll be fine. I might even leave that. I think I might even leave that unfilled, just as a kind of like a drain kind of thing, like a drain hole for water to drip down under the house, because it goes into the cavity under the house. So that doesn't really serve any real purpose there, but I'll see what I can do. I might fill it still. But anyway, so that's the idea. That glue will again go off in about a few hours, and then afterwards I'll caulk the joints and Bob's your uncle, and then do all the filling and whatever needs to be filled, and prime and paint. Alright guys, so just a final sort of update on these rot repairs. So just to sort of sum it up, I did this. I usually do it a bit differently than what you normally see. I actually like to avoid joining, having weatherboard joins above on top of studs, because studs are pretty narrow, and you've got a couple of nails on the ends of each weatherboard piece right next to the end grains, so there's it's not very forgiving. There's a lot that can go wrong in that situation, so I try to join weatherboard pieces together in between studs, especially when I'm doing repairs. I mean, if I were using quality timber, then it wouldn't really matter, but this pine junk is not very forgiving, so I do whatever I can to minimize the chance of rot and whatever, and also it's easier to cut that way, because you're not risking cutting into the stud and whatever, so it's just a bit easier also. And I mean, once you sort of put that backing behind the top of these two boards and join them together, then depending on, because no weatherboard is perfectly straight, and some of them have bows inwards, outwards, this way, that way, whatever. So you look underneath and make sure that the overlap is actually touching the board underneath, because that will be the backing on the bottom side that you need. Okay, and if there is a gap, then you just put some good quality sealant underneath to fill that gap, okay, before or during painting. So, and once that's done, once everything dries and cures, there's nothing you can do to sort of damage it, and it's solid as a rock. So the joint is solid, so you can hammer into it and whatever. So anyway, so that's the way that I do it. But there's many ways to skin a cat, so I'm not saying the other way is wrong, but I just find that it's cleaner to work this way. You're not cutting into the studs, a bit easier to sort of get a clean cut, and also there's less risk of of future rot, because you're not putting nails, for one, because there's no nails involved at all with this stuff, you know, on the ends, you know. I mean, obviously I'm still nailing to the existing studs, but I'm not nailing at the joint, and that can be the biggest issue, you know, putting nails right very close to the end grains. And you know, even if you prime it, prime the end grains, it can break down a bit easier. Well, anyway, so that's what I do, and hope you find this a little bit helpful. Have a good one.